My niece called the $20,000 Sweet 16 I threw her lame and said I ruined everything. She thought I would just stand there and take it. So I calmly walked to the DJ, cut the music, and told the caterers to pack up every last appetizer. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The ballroom was shimmering. I had made sure of it. As an interior designer, my professional reputation was built on creating magic, and tonight I had poured all that expertise into my niece, Sophia. The theme was Midnight Garden, and I had spared no expense. Thousands of tiny, fiber-optic lights were woven into curtains of deep blue velvet, mimicking a starry sky. The centerpieces were breathtaking, arrangements of white orchids and silver ferns that climbed toward the ceiling, all reflected in the polished black dance floor I'd had specially installed. The scent of gardenias and the low, sophisticated thrum of the DJ's opening set filled the air. I stood near the entrance, a flute of non-alcoholic sparkling cider in my hand, feeling a deep swell of pride. This wasn't just a party, it was a statement. A statement that, despite the financial struggles my sister Daisy always seemed to be in, her daughter would want for nothing. At least, not while I was around. Olivia, it's a fairy tale, Daisy had whispered to me an hour earlier, her eyes wet with tears. She was a real estate agent, perpetually chasing the next big commission that never seemed to land, and her gratitude was palpable. I don't know how you did this. You just focus on being the mother of the birthday girl, ID said, smoothing down the lapel of my dress. I've got this. And I did. I'd spent 3 months planning this. I'd personally vetted the caterer, whose chefs were currently assembling gourmet plates of mini beef Wellingtons and truffle-infused macaroni and cheese. I'd auditioned 3 different DJs to find this one, a young woman with an incredible knack for blending current hits with timeless classics. The venue, a historic downtown hotel ballroom, was one I'd used for my highest-end clients. The total cost was cresting $20,000, a sum I'd gladly paid. Sophia was my only niece. She was supposed to be the daughter I never had. I watched her move through the crowd of her friends. She was wearing a custom-made silver dress I'd commissioned, looking every bit the princess. But something was off. Her smile was tight. She kept glancing over her shoulder at a girl with sharp features and a bored expression, Madison, her new best friend. Madison was from one of those new money families, and her influence on Sophia over the past 6 months had been concerning. I started to walk over, intending to ask Sophia if she was enjoying herself. I moved quietly, my soft-soled shoes making no sound on the plush carpet bordering the dance floor. I came up behind her just as she and Madison were standing near the towering, 8-tier cake I designed to look like a silver birch tree. Madison gestured vaguely at the room with a manicured hand. I mean, it's cute, I guess, in a really retro way. I stopped, hidden by a large floral display. It's not cute, Maddie, it's lame. Sophia's voice was sharp, cutting, and filled with a teenage vitriol that physically stung. The DJ is playing so much old people music. And the food? Seriously, who serves this? Everyone wanted a taco truck. And this, Madison said, flicking the skirt of Sophia's dress, is not the designer we talked about. I know, Sophia's voice rose to a near wail. She said she'd handle it, and then she just did all this. She didn't even ask me. This is so lame. You ruined everything, Aunt Olivia. She didn't know I was there, of course. She was complaining to Madison about me. She had spat my name like it was something bitter in her mouth. I stood frozen for a full 30 seconds. The shimmering lights suddenly looked garish. The expensive food seemed ridiculous. The music felt like a funeral dirge. Every single sacrifice, every late-night call from Daisy, Liv, I'm a little short on the mortgage. Every check I'd written, every bit of professional capital I had cashed in to make this night perfect. It all coalesced into a single, cold, hard knot in my stomach. I had been a resource, a bank, a fixer. I was the reliable, successful, childless older sister who could just handle it. And in that moment, I realized that by always handling it, I had taught them that my money, my time, and my effort were limitless and, ultimately, worthless. Sophia rolled her eyes again, grabbed Madison's hand, and said, "Let's go get a pic for Insta, at least. We can use a filter to make it look less basic." They walked off, laughing, toward the photo booth. Also my idea, also $1,500. I close. My eyes. The swell of pride was gone, replaced by a glacial calm. The betrayal was so total, so dismissive that it didn't even hurt, it just clarified. They had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten who I was. I wasn't just Aunt Olivia, the family ATM. I was Olivia Grant, the owner of a firm that had built its reputation on flawless execution and ironclad contracts. And the person who signs the checks holds the pen. The betrayal wasn't just the insult. It was the realization that this was what they truly thought of me, and I was done paying for it. The glacial calm didn't break. It solidified. I felt my breathing even out as I watched my niece, the girl I'd taught to ride a bike, the girl I'd taken to her first Broadway show, pose and preen for a camera, mocking the very event she had begged me to provide. My mind, trained by years of managing demanding clients and fickle contractors, didn't spiral into "why me?" It immediately shifted into "what now?" I thought back over the last 3 months. The planning had been a nightmare, but I'd assumed it was just typical teenage indecision. Now, I saw it clearly. Every request Sophia had made was a direct echo of Madison's influence. "Aunt Liv," she'd said over the phone 2 months ago, "I was thinking, a ballroom is just so old." "What did you have in mind, sweetie?" I'd asked, scrolling through swatches for a client. "Well, Madison's cousin had her party at the Void. It's this new industrial space. It's all concrete and exposed pipes, and they had a graffiti artist doing live work. And a sushi wall." "A sushi wall," I'd repeated, baffled. "Sophia, honey, that sounds complicated, and the Void is a nightclub. They don't do private events for 16-year-olds. "But Maddie said," she'd whined. I'd overruled her gently. "We're going with the ballroom. It's elegant, it's classic. Trust me, it will be beautiful." "But I want a sushi wall," she'd cried before hanging up. A week later, it was the DJ. I'd sent her 3 demo tapes. She sent back a link to a SoundCloud-exclusive artist who, according to Madison, was the next big thing and charged $10,000 for a 2-hour set. I had put my foot down. "Sophia, this is my gift to you. You either let me plan it, or you and your mother can plan it." Daisy had called me, flustered, an hour later. "Liv, please, just be patient with her. She's under so much pressure. This new school, all her friends are, well, you know, they have so much. And I'm giving her a $20,000 party, Daisy," I said, my patience wearing thin. "That is more than so much. That is everything." I know," Daisy had said, her voice dropping to that familiar, wheedling tone. "And we're so grateful. Really, we are. Just make it nice, okay? She deserves it." She deserves it. Standing there by the floral display, those words echoed in my head. She deserves it. I looked across the room. My sister Daisy was holding court near the bar, laughing with some of her own friends she'd invited. She was wearing a new dress, one I hadn't bought her, and looked perfectly at ease, sipping a cocktail, completely oblivious to her daughter's behavior. She was basking in the reflected glow of my wealth, accepting compliments for a party she hadn't contributed a single dollar or a single idea to. That, I realized, was the root of the problem. Daisy enabled it. She saw me as a solution, not a sister. And she had raised her daughter to see me the same way. A new wave of cold fury, sharp and precise, cut through my calm. This wasn't just Sophia's teenage ignorance. This was a systemic rot in my family, a pattern of taking that I had foolishly, generously, and consistently allowed. My phone vibrated in my clutch. It was a text from the venue manager, a man named Marcus whom I'd worked with for years. Marcus, Olivia, everything looks spectacular. The kitchen is ready to serve the main course on your signal. Also, just a reminder, the final vendor payments, DJ, catering, are due for settlement tonight, per our agreement. I smiled, a tight, thin smile that didn't reach my eyes. Per our agreement. I had structured the payments this way myself. It was standard for high-end events. You pay a deposit to book, but the final, massive installments for the talent and the food are paid upon services rendered. This ensures the DJ doesn't leave early and the caterer doesn't run out of food. It was my own professional safety net, and I was about to use it in a way I had never imagined. I texted Marcus back. Hold on the main course. I need to speak with you, the caterer, and the DJ in your office, immediately and quietly. I looked at my watch. 9:15 p.m. The party was scheduled to go until midnight. The main course was due to be served at 9:30 p.m. The guests, about 80 teenagers and 20 adults, were mingling. The DJ was just starting to ramp up the energy. Everything was perfect. It was a perfect, beautiful, expensive matchin'. Hey. And I was about to pull the plug. I started walking toward the back of house, my heels clicking with purpose on the marble floor. I was no longer a vulnerable aunt. I was a client who had been insulted, a client who was about to cancel a contract. The betrayal was worse than the money I could make again. The betrayal was the realization that my love was valued only by its price tag, and even then, they thought it was cheap. My relationship with my sister, Daisy, has always been complicated. She's 3 years younger, and I've spent my entire life pulling her out of trouble. It started small. I'd do her homework in high school so she wouldn't fail. I'd cover her shift at the diner so she could go to a party. Then, it escalated. When our parents passed away, I was 28 and just starting my design firm. Daisy was 25 and, as she put it, finding herself. She burned through her small inheritance in 6 months on a trip to Europe and a guy who played guitar. I, on the other hand, had invested mine in my business, working 80-hour weeks, sleeping on a cot in my tiny office. When she came home, broke and pregnant with Sophia, I was the one who let her move into my 1-bedroom apartment. I was the one who paid for the prenatal vitamins, who held her hand during the birth, and who bought the first 5 years' worth of Sophia's clothes. "You're a lifesaver, Liv," she'd always say, hugging me tightly. "I'll pay you back, I swear." She never did. She got her real estate license, which I paid for. She needed a professional car to drive clients around, so I co-signed the lease on a luxury sedan. When she wanted to buy a small condo, the bank laughed at her credit. So I put up the 20% down payment myself, telling myself it was an investment in the family. For 16 years, I had been the family's structural support. I was the load-bearing wall holding up the entire, precarious house of cards that was Daisy's life. And Sophia was supposed to be the point of it all. I loved her, genuinely. I saw her as a chance to give someone all the things I'd never had. I took her to museums, to the theater, to client meetings in beautiful homes. I wanted to show her that a woman could be independent, successful, and in charge. I thought I was teaching her strength. Instead, I had apparently just been teaching her how to be a very effective, very entitled princess. As I walked toward the manager's office, the weight of that generosity pressed down on me. I thought of the client I'd turned down last month, a lucrative hotel project, because I needed to focus on Sophia's party. I thought of the vacation I'd postponed, the savings I'd dipped into. This party wasn't just $20,000. It was a symbol of decades of one-way sacrifice. And Sophia's words hadn't just been an insult, they were a judgment. They were a review of my life's work as Aunt Olivia, and the verdict was in: lame, ruined. I reached the office. Marcus, the venue manager, stood when I entered. He was a consummate professional, his face a mask of polite concern. "Olivia, what's wrong? Is the food not to your liking?" "The food is irrelevant, Marcus," I said, my voice low and steady. I pulled out my checkbook from my clutch. I am shutting the party down. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. I'm sorry, what? There's a contractual. There is, I interrupted, and I am prepared to honor it. You, the caterer, and the DJ all have clauses for event cancellation by client. I am invoking them right now. But why? Because my guests of honor have just informed me that the event is lame and that I have ruined everything. I see no reason to continue funding an event that is so clearly a disappointment to them. Marcus blinked, processing. He was a businessman. He understood contracts. I need you to bring the head caterer and the DJ in here. We are going to settle the bills. Prorated for services rendered up to 9:30 p.m. Marcus, seeing the look in my eyes, didn't argue. He just nodded and picked up his radio. Get Maria from catering and the DJ, Sarah, I think, to my office. Now. A minute later, Maria, the caterer, and Sarah, the DJ, were in the room, looking confused. I was all business. Ladies, thank you for your work tonight. It has been excellent. Unfortunately, I am ending the party, effective immediately. Sarah, the DJ, looked horrified. Did I do something wrong? Was it the music? Your music was perfect, Sarah, I said, already writing a check. The issue is with the guests, not the vendors. Maria, your team's food was exquisite. However, the main course will not be served. I turned to Marcus. Marcus, your contract is for the room until midnight plus security. I will pay for the full room rental. That's non-negotiable. I handed him a check. But security will now be needed to escort 80 teenagers to the curb. To Maria, your contract is for food and service. Your team has prepped the main, but not served it. I will pay for the food costs plus service for the first 2 hours. Here. I handed her a check. Please have your team pack up everything. The appetizers, the main course, the desserts, especially the cake. To Sarah, your contract is for 4 hours. You've played 2. I will pay you for the 2 hours plus a cancellation bonus. I wrote a check and handed it to her. I need you to make one final announcement. You will say, the party is over, good night. And then you will cut the music. Can you do that? Sarah, looking at the check in her hand, which was for more than her full 4-hour fee, just nodded. Yes, ma'am. Good, I said, putting my checkbook away. We're going to do this in order. Marcus, you will have the house lights turned up. Sarah, you will make your announcement. Maria, your team will start packing. I will be at the main entrance ensuring my family doesn't interfere with your staff. They all stared at me. It was the most brutal, efficient, and coldest set of instructions they'd ever received. But I was the client, and I was paying. I had just turned a $20,000 party into a $12,000 lesson in consequences. Let's go, I said. Show's over. I walked back into the ballroom, my 3 contractors fanning out behind me to their respective stations. My heart wasn't pounding. I wasn't nervous. I felt lighter. The weight of 16 years of expectation had been lifted. I was no longer responsible for their happiness. I took up a position near the grand entrance, next to the velvet ropes, and simply watched. This was my turning point. For my entire life, I had operated on a single principle: make it nice. Fix the problem, smooth the feathers, pay the bill, make it nice. When Daisy's car was repossessed, I bought her a new one, make it nice. When Sophia broke her arm and Daisy couldn't afford the ER bill, I paid it, make it nice. When they complained about their tiny, cramped condo, I paid for this party, a fantasy, to make them feel special, make it nice. The problem with making it nice is that you erase all the sharp, painful edges of reality. You erase consequences. And if people never touch the sharp edges, they never learn that their actions can make others bleed. I was done making it nice. I was, for the first time in my life, going to make it real. Sophia and Madison were by the dance floor taking a selfie. Sophia was pouting, her $500 dress on display. The DJ, Sarah, was at her booth. She saw me. I gave her a single, sharp nod. She faded out the thumping pop song. The sudden, awkward silence caused 100 conversations to stop. Teenagers looked up from their phones, confused. Then Sarah's voice came over the speakers, crisp and professional. "Attention guests, the party is over. Please gather your belongings and exit the ballroom. Good night." She didn't just cut the music, she killed the power to her entire rig. The silence was now total, heavy, and absolute. A moment later, as if on cue, the house lights slammed on. The soft, starry midnight garden vibe was instantly, brutally erased, replaced by the harsh, unflattering glare of the ballroom's utility lighting. The magic vanished. The velvet curtains looked like old drapes. The floral centerpieces looked like dying weeds. The room was just a room. A collective wah-at rippled through the teenagers. And then, Phase 3. From the side doors, Maria's catering team emerged. They were not carrying silver trays of hot food. They were carrying large, plastic bus tubs and speed racks. They moved with grim efficiency. They started at the main table, packing up the untouched gourmet appetizers. They wheeled out the main courses, still on their hot racks, and headed for the service exit. Another team, armed with a trolley, walked directly to the 8-tier silver birch cake, which hadn't even been cut. With practiced ease, they lifted the entire thing and wheeled it away. It was the most beautiful, coordinated, and devastating act of deconstruction I had ever witnessed. It was art. The room erupted, not into a panic, but into the high-pitched, confused screaming of privileged teenagers being denied something. "What is happening? Where's the cake? This is so weird." Sophia's head whipped around, her eyes wide with genuine shock. She saw the caterers. She saw the lights. She saw me standing at the door. She pointed a finger, her face turning a splotchy, ugly red. "Aunt Olivia, what are you doing?" Her voice, her real voice, was a shriek. The princess had vanished. Before I could answer, my sister Daisy was barreling toward me, her face a mask of confusion and outrage. "Liv, what's going on? The manager said you stopped it. What is wrong with you?" This was it, the moment of confrontation. I had always dreaded this. The moment where Daisy's need and my refusal would finally collide. But now, I felt nothing but a cold, clear resolve. I looked at my sister, at the woman I had supported for half her life. "You're right, Daisy," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but it cut through her panic. "I stopped it." "Why, you've embarrassed me. You've embarrassed Sophia." "On the contrary, Daisy," I said, gesturing to the fuming, screaming birthday girl. "She embarrassed herself, and she embarrassed me." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about my $20,000 party," I said. "The one I paid for, the one your daughter just described as lame, the one she told her friend I ruined." I believe those were her exact words, weren't they, Sophia? Sophia, who had stomped over, froze. Her face went from red to a ghostly white. She hadn't just been caught, she had been quoted. I didn't," she stammered. "Oh, you did," I said, not unkindly. "I was right behind you. It was quite the performance. You and Madison." Madison, I noted, had already slipped out the side door. A true friend. "Olivia, she's a child," Daisy shrieked, her hands flying up. "She didn't mean it. You can't just ruin her party." "I am a child," Sophia screamed, turning on her mother. "This is my party, and she did ruin it." It was a fascinating, horrifying display. In that moment, Sophia was not angry at me for ending the party. She was angry at me for proving her right. I had, in her mind, finally done what she'd accused me of all along. I had ruined everything. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. "So," I said, looking at Daisy's apoplectic face and Sophia's tear-streaked, screaming one, "you both seem to agree. The party is ruined. In that case, my work here is done." "You can't do this." Daisy grabbed my arm. Her fingers dug in hard. "You will go back there and you will tell them to bring the food back. You will turn the music on. Fix this, Olivia. Fix this." There it was, the old, familiar refrain. I slowly, deliberately, removed her hand from my arm. "No, Daisy," I said, "I won't." I turned to Sophia. Her face was a mess of running mascara and pure, unadulterated entitlement. Happy birthday, Sophia, I said. This is your gift. It's the one thing I've apparently never given you. It's called a consequence. You should try it on. It's not lame at all. It's very, very real. I picked up my clutch from the entry table. You paid for this, Sophia screamed, a last desperate volley. You have to stay, it's my party. You're right, I said, pausing at the door. I did pay for it, which means it's my party, and I'm leaving. I walked out of the ballroom. I didn't run. I walked, my head held high, past the astonished hotel staff and the gaggle of teenagers now spilling into the hallway, all tweeting and gramming the disaster. I could hear Sophia's screams echoing down the hall. I could hear Daisy calling my name. I just kept walking. I went to the valet, got my car, and drove home, with my wallet. The drive home was silent. I didn't turn on the radio. I just drove, my hands steady on the wheel. The adrenaline had faded, leaving behind that same crystalline calm. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. It was a feeling I hadn't realized I was missing. When I got back to my apartment, I poured myself a very large, very expensive glass of scotch. I sat on my balcony, overlooking the city lights, and let the silence wash over me. Then my phone buzzed, and buzzed, and buzzed. It was an all-out nuclear assault. First, there were the texts from Daisy. They started as a rapid-fire burst of pure, unbridled rage. Daisy, how dare you? Daisy, you humiliated me. You humiliated my daughter. Daisy, you are a sick, vindictive percentat dollars. Daisy, Sophia is in her room. She is hysterical. This is your fault. I watched the messages roll in, my expression unchanged. Daisy, pick up your phone, pick up, pick up. Daisy, you will regret this, Olivia. I swear to God you will regret this. Then the flying monkeys started. Daisy had clearly sixed the rest of the family on me. My cousin Sarah, Liv, I'm hearing some crazy things. Is Sophia okay? Daisy is a wreck. My Aunt Catherine, Olivia dear, I think you owe your sister a massive apology. What you did was just cruel. She's a child. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, took a sip of scotch, and went to bed. I slept more soundly than I had in 16 years. The next morning, I woke up to 28 missed calls and 47 text messages. The narrative had clearly shifted. The new theme was, you've traumatized her. But my quiet takedown wasn't just about the party. The party was the symptom. The disease was the entitlement, and the cure was a full dose of reality. And I was the only one who could administer it. I got up, made coffee, and sat at my desk. I opened my laptop and began my investigation. Not into Sophia, but into Madison. I was a professional designer. I had to vet contractors, subcontractors, and clients all the time. My business, my survival, depended on knowing who I was dealing with. It took me less than 30 minutes. Madison wasn't new money. She was no money. Her father was a mid-level manager at a local tech firm. Her mother was, well, her mother was very good at pretending. I found their address. It was a rental. I found their car, a leased BMW. I found a string of social media posts, all heavily curated, all screaming wealth. But the real goldmine was the local court dockets, public record. Madison's parents were being sued by 3 different vendors: a caterer from a charity event they'd hosted, a jeweler, a high-end clothing boutique, all for non-payment. They were masters of the fake it till you make it lifestyle, leaving a trail of unpaid bills and angry small business owners in their wake. This wasn't a snob, this was a grifter. A 16-year-old grifter trained by professionals. This was the person my niece was emulating. This was the person who had called my life's work lame. I saved the PDFs, all of them. Then I turned to my own finances. I called my lawyer and my financial advisor. I want to restructure some assets, I said. Specifically, the trust I've been funding for my niece's education. And I need to get my name off a cosign mortgage for a condo. What are my options? The takedown wasn't just about the one night. It was about the rest of my life. The party was the confrontation. This was the cold, quiet, systematic dismantling of the entire rotten structure. My phone rang. It was Daisy. I let it go to voicemail. Voicemail, Liv, please, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry, I was angry, but you've made your point. Sophia she's devastated. She's locked herself in her room. She won't come out. She said she's too embarrassed to ever go back to school. You've destroyed her. You have to fix this. Fix this. There it was again, the magic words. I picked up the phone, but I didn't call Daisy. I called the caterer, Maria. Maria, I said, it's Olivia Grant. I have a question. How much of that food from last night is still good? Good, I'd like to purchase it all, and I need it delivered to the downtown women's shelter. My card is on file. I hung up, and for the first time, I smiled. The party wasn't a total loss after all. I let Daisy and Sophia stew in their self-imposed humiliation for 3 full days. The texts went from angry to pleading to manipulative. Daisy, the school called. Sophia didn't show up. All her friends are talking about it. They're calling her party pooper. You did this. Daisy, Liv, I'm serious. I'm worried about her. This isn't just teenage drama. This is real. You've given her a complex. This is emotional damage. Daisy, I'm going to have to pay for a therapist. You are going to have to pay for a therapist. That last one almost made me laugh. On the 4th day, there was a knock on my apartment door. A frantic, desperate pounding. I knew who it was. I buzzed her in. Daisy stood in my doorway, looking like a wreck. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were red and puffy, and her real estate agent power suit was rumpled. You have to talk to her, she said, storming past me into my apartment. She didn't wait for an invitation. She's in the car. She won't come up. Olivia, I'm scared. She won't talk to me. She just sits in her room and cries or texts that awful girl Madison. So, I said, calmly pouring myself a cup of coffee. The 2 people who caused the problem are now miserable. This sounds like a problem that is solving itself. This isn't a joke, Daisy shouted, her voice cracking. You don't know what you've done. You humiliated her in front of everyone. No, I said, turning to face her. I am going to say this one more time, and I need you to listen, Daisy. I didn't humiliate her. She humiliated me. I just refused to pay for the privilege. There is a very big difference. She's 16. What do you expect? You're the adult. I am, and as the adult, I'm done. I'm done, Daisy. Done with what? Done with your family. I'm done being the bank, I said. I walked to my desk, picked up a file folder, and tossed it on the coffee table in front of her. I'm done with this. Daisy looked at the folder. What is this? That, I said, is your new friend Madison, or rather her parents. That's a copy of the lawsuit from their last caterer, and the one from the jeweler. They're con artists, Daisy. They're grifters, living on debt and lies. That is who your daughter idolizes. That's the rich friend who told her my party was lame. She's not rich, Daisy. She's just tacky. Daisy's face went pale as she read the first page. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You never ask. You just take. She recoiled as if I'd slapped her. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked me how my business was, Daisy? Not as a prelude to asking for money, but just because you were interested. She opened her mouth and closed it. She had N. Oh, answer. For 16 years, I continued, I have been the fixer. I've paid for your life, and in return, you've raised your daughter to believe that I am not a person, but a resource, a bottomless pit of money that she is entitled to. And when the resource didn't provide exactly what she wanted, in exactly the way her grifter friend told her to want it, she threw a tantrum. So what? You threw one back, a $20,000 tantrum. No, I said, I stopped paying. This is what it looks like when I stop paying, Daisy. It's not pretty, is it? The lights come on, the music stops. The food gets packed away. Daisy crumpled. She didn't just sit. She collapsed onto my expensive sofa, her hands covering her face. She started to sob, not the fake, manipulative tears I was used to. These were the real thing. Hard, dry, racking sobs of someone who has just hit rock bottom. "I've ruined her," she whispered into her hands. "It's not you, it's me. I wanted her to have everything. I wanted her to be, like you, successful, respected. And all I've taught her is how to be, like me, always needing, always asking." The confession hung in the air. It was the first honest thing she'd said to me in a decade. I sat down, not next to her but in the chair opposite her. I didn't comfort her. I didn't offer her a tissue. I just waited. "What do I do, Liv?" she finally asked, her voice raw. "I don't know how to fix this." "Good," I said. "Because for the first time, I'm not going to fix it for you. You are. You are going to go downstairs. You are going to get your daughter. You are going to bring her up here. And we are all going to have a talk. As adults. Or, at least, 2 adults and 1 person who is about to learn how to be one." Daisy looked terrified. "She won't listen, she'll scream." "Then she'll scream," I said, "in someone else's apartment." I stood up and walked to the door, holding it open. It was a clear, non-negotiable command. She stared at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine for the old Liv, the pushover, the fixer. She was gone. Daisy wiped her nose on her sleeve, stood up, and walked out the door to get her daughter. Sophia did not come quietly. I heard the argument all the way from the elevator. She was shouting, Daisy was pleading. When the door opened, Sophia stomped in, her arms crossed, her face still puffy. She was wearing ripped sweatpants and a hoodie, her "I'm a victim" uniform. She refused to look at me, marching straight to my balcony and staring out at the city, her back to the room. "Sophia, turn around," Daisy said, her voice trembling but firm. "No, this is stupid. She's just going to yell at me," Sophia muttered. "I'm not going to yell at you, Sophia," I said. She turned around, her eyes blazing. "Then what? You're going to tell me again how ungrateful I am, how you paid for everything. Go ahead, say it, I don't care, it was lame, it was all for you. You wanted to show off to all your rich friends how generous you are." The accusation was so wildly, spectacularly wrong that it almost took my breath away. "I see," I said. "So the party I threw for you, with your guest list, with the theme you asked for, was actually for me. You didn't get the DJ I wanted. You didn't get the food I wanted. You just did whatever you wanted. You never listened to me." "I listened, Sophia. I listened when you told me you wanted a party. And I listened at the party when you told Madison I ruined everything. I heard you loud and clear." I walked over to the coffee table and tapped the file folder I'd shown Daisy. "Sit down." "I don't want to." I said, "Sit down," I commanded. My voice had the steel in it that I used with non-compliant contractors, and it shocked her into silence. She sat. I slid the file in front of her. "That's your friend, Madison. You know, the one whose opinion you value so much. Read it." Sophia's eyes scanned the first page. The lawsuit, her brow furrowed. "What is this?" "That is a public document showing that Madison's parents are being sued for fraud. They don't pay their bills, Sophia. The rich life you're so desperate to copy is a complete sham. They are con artists. And you, my dear, were their perfect little in. The girl with the rich, stupid aunt who would pay for everything." Sophia's face went white. This was a different kind of humiliation. This wasn't just being embarrassed. This was realizing she'd been played. That's not true," she whispered. "Maddie's my best friend." "Maddie is a user," I said, my voice softening just a little. "And she saw you as an easy mark. And you, in your hurry to impress her, were willing to throw away the only person who has actually been in your corner, providing for you your entire life." Her eyes filled with tears. These were not the angry, performative tears from the party. This was the deep, shuddering pain of a child who has just realized the world is far more complicated and cold than she imagined. "But I just wanted," she stammered. "I just wanted to be. I wanted them to think I was." "Cool," I offered. "Rich like them." She nodded, the tears now flowing freely. "You are," I said, "in all the ways that matter. You are smart, you are healthy, and you were loved unconditionally. But you took that love, Sophia, and you spat on it, in public, for the approval of a girl who will be in juvenile court in 2 years. That was it, the dam broke. She wasn't a monster. She was a child. A stupid, impressionable, and deeply insecure child who had been given terrible advice by both her mother's weakness and her friend's greed. She looked at me, her face crumbling. "I'm sorry, Aunt Liv," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I was trying to be like her. I'm sorry." It was a start. I looked at Daisy, who was crying silently. "This is where it gets hard," I said, turning back to my niece. "I accept your apology, but apologies don't fix what's broken." I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer, putting him on speaker. "David, are you there?" "I'm here, Olivia. Are the parties present?" "They are." Sophia and Daisy looked at the phone in horror. "As we discussed, David," I said, "I'm restructuring. The college fund I've been paying into for Sophia, we're freezing it. All my contributions are being pulled back and placed in my own trust." "No," Daisy gasped. "And the condo, David. We've reviewed the cosigner agreement. Olivia, you can't be removed without your sister refinancing, and given her credit, that's unlikely." As I thought. "Then we'll proceed with option B. We will be forcing a sale of the unit to recoup my down payment." "Liv, no," Daisy shrieked, standing up. "You'll make us homeless, you can't." "I can," I said, my voice dead calm. "I am not your safety net anymore, Daisy. You will sell the condo. My 20% down payment will come back to me. You will take whatever equity you have left, and you will rent, like every other person who can't afford to buy." This was the climax, not the party. This, the sound of the entire rotten support structure I had built finally crashing to the ground. Sophia was staring at me, her mouth open, speechless. "And you," I said to Sophia, "you are going to get a job, not a summer internship at my firm, a real job. You'll be bussing tables or scooping ice cream, and you will pay me back." Pay you back for what?" she whispered. "The party, the $12,000 I still had to pay for the deposits, the vendors, and the cancellation fees. You're going to pay me back every single cent, even if it takes you 10 years. You wanted to be an adult? Welcome to adulthood. It's all about paying the bills." Daisy was hyperventilating. Sophia just looked broken. "Thank you, David," I said, and I hung up. The room was silent, save for Daisy's gasps. "You're a monster," Daisy finally whispered. "No," I said, "I'm a designer, and I'm finally fixing the flawed foundation of this family. It's not pretty, it's not nice, but it's real." The downfall was not as public as the party, but it was far more profound. Daisy, faced with the legal reality of a forced sale, had to sell the condo. As I predicted, after I recouped my down payment, there was very little left. She and Sophia moved into a 2-bedroom rental apartment in a less fashionable part of town. The luxury sedan I'd co-signed for, I'd let the lease expire. She now drove a 5-year-old used car that she paid for herself. Daisy had to work, not just play at real estate. She started holding open houses every weekend. She took on clients she previously would have considered beneath her. We didn't talk for 6 months. The silence was peaceful. And Sophia, she got a job. I saw her one day when I was getting an ice cream. She was behind the counter in a pink and white striped uniform, her hair in a net. She saw me. Her face flushed, and she looked down, her hands trembling as she served the customer in front of me. When it was my turn, I stepped up. "I'll have a small 1-scoop vanilla," I said. She nodded, not meeting my eye. She scooped the ice cream, her hands still shaking. "That's $3.50. I handed her a $20 bill. "Thank you, Sophia, it looks delicious." She fumbled with the change. Your change is $16.50. "Keep it," I said. "Put it toward your debt." Her head snapped up, her eyes wide. I wasn't taunting her, I was just being practical. "That's only 3,428 more of those to go," she whispered, a ghost of a smile on her face. "I'm keeping track," I said. I smiled back. "You look good in pink." It was a start. The reconciliation didn't happen overnight. It happened in small, painful increments. It happened when Daisy called me, 6 months later, not to ask for money, but to tell me she'd just closed her first big sale. On her own. Her voice was full of a pride I'd ever heard before. It happened when Sophia sent me her first paycheck from the ice cream shop. It was for $250. Taped to it was a small note, written on notebook paper. Aunt Liv, I know it's not much, but it's a start. I'm sorry, I'm still sorry. S. I didn't cash the check, I framed it. I did, however, unfreeze her college fund. My lawyer thought I was crazy. But I wasn't just teaching a lesson, I was rebuilding a person. The antagonist, Madison, faded from their lives. Once the money dried up, once the rich aunt was no longer a factor, Sophia was no longer useful. I heard, through the grapevine, that her family had been evicted from their rental. I felt nothing. The story ends not with a big, happy party. It ends at a small formica table in a rental apartment. I came over for dinner. Daisy made lasagna. It was okay. Sophia was there, home from her first semester at the state university. The one she was paying for with a combination of her savings, my reinstated fund, and a part-time job. We ate, we talked about her classes, we talked about Daisy's new clients. It was normal. It was quiet, it was real. As I was leaving, Daisy stopped me at the door. Liv, she said, thank you. For what? The lasagna. No, she said, her eyes shining with those real, honest tears. For burning it all down. We needed it, I needed it. I hugged my sister, really hugged her for the first time in years. Don't worry, I said, pulling back. My fee for demolitions is steep. She laughed, a real genuine laugh. I'll bet, I'll start saving up. As I drove home, I felt at peace. I hadn't just paid for a party. I had bought my family back. And, as it turns out, the price was exactly $12,000, a sold condo, and one very, very lame Sweet 16.